You don't think too much. You think too deep. And that's the real problem. Because the more aware you become, the harder it gets to switch off. Your mind replays, rewinds, rewrites. Every silence feels loaded. Every moment becomes analysis. And slowly, you drown in a loop you built yourself. This isn't anxiety. This is psychological warfare against yourself. This is the dark psychology behind overthinking. Welcome to Black Trap, the loop that never closes. Why the mind needs a finish line, but never gets one. They don't understand what it's like to live inside a mind that never shuts up. A mind that replays every conversation, rewinds every decision, writes alternate endings for moments that have already passed. They think overthinking is just thinking too much, but it's not. It's thinking without resolution. It's running through a maze that was never designed to have an exit. You feel like you're solving something, but you're only deepening the trap. This is not a habit. It's a form of mental captivity. And the worst part? You built it yourself. Welcome to the loop that never closes. How the brain traps itself in the search for closure. The brain is addicted to closure. That's how we're wired. Every story must have an ending. Every equation a solution. Every open loop must be closed. But in life, especially in human interaction, closure is rare. Conversations are left open-ended. Relationships end without explanation. Decisions are made in chaos. And your brain can't accept that. So it replays, it rewrites, it keeps going back, searching for an ending that will never come. This creates a mental loop, an emotional algorithm that keeps recycling the same images, same questions, same possibilities. What did they mean by that? What if I said something different? Should I have walked away? Over and over again. You don't want to think about it, but you can't stop. Because the brain believes, if I think about this long enough, I will finally get relief. But that relief never comes. Because thinking isn't closure. Thinking is just activity. And in the case of overthinking, it's self-harm disguised as problem-solving. The illusion of control through thought. Here's the dark part. Overthinking feels productive. It feels like control. You believe, if I keep analyzing this moment, I can prepare for next time. If I predict every possible outcome, I won't be caught off guard again. So you build mental simulations. You imagine the next conversation, the next betrayal, the next failure. You armor yourself with thoughts. But the armor is made of glass. Overthinking doesn't protect you. It paralyzes you. Because when you imagine too many outcomes, you can't move toward any of them. You get stuck in neutral, thinking instead of acting, doubting instead of deciding. You become afraid to choose because you've seen too many versions of how it could go wrong. And that's where the loop deepens. The fear of regret becomes stronger than the desire to act. You fear making the wrong choice more than you fear stagnation. So you do nothing. But even that inaction doesn't bring peace. Because now your mind replays the fact that you didn't act. And so the loop resets again, endlessly. How emotional memory triggers thought loops. Most people think overthinking is logical. It's not. It's emotional. The mind isn't just processing facts. It's processing wounds. When you were hurt, humiliated, abandoned, or overlooked, your brain didn't get closure. It got trauma. And that trauma created mental open loops that never shut. So now, when you experience anything even similar to that past hurt, your brain reactivates the entire sequence. You begin obsessing. Not because you're irrational, but because your brain is trying to protect you from ever feeling that pain again. So it scans, analyzes, imagines, all in the name of safety. But what it really creates is paranoia. You stop trusting your decisions. You overanalyze people's tone, timing, and wording. You assume hidden meanings where there are none. Your brain believes it's keeping you alive, but it's actually keeping you alone, indecisive, and exhausted. Because your memory isn't just storing data, it's storing danger, and that danger triggers the loop. Why the mind becomes addicted to the loop. Here's where the trap tightens. The loop becomes your comfort zone. You hate it, but it's familiar. You don't want to overthink, but it feels safer than letting go. Letting go means accepting uncertainty, accepting that you'll never know for sure, that you can't predict or control everything. And for the overthinking mind, that's unacceptable. So you stay in the loop, not because it feels good, but because it feels better than chaos. You'd rather be mentally overwhelmed than emotionally vulnerable. You'd rather feel the pain of constant thought than the terror of actual silence. The loop becomes a distraction from what you're truly afraid to face, reality. And that makes the loop addictive. It gives your mind something to do, something to solve, something to control, even if it's just a ghost, even if it's just noise. Because at least it's yours. The loop belongs to you. It becomes your mental prison, but also your mental identity. And the more you overthink, the more you believe, this is just who I am. But it's not. It's who you've become, because no one taught you how to stop. Knowing isn't solving. Here's the darkest part of all. The mind that overthinks is brilliant. It's deep. It's powerful. It sees patterns others miss. It feels energy others ignore. But without boundaries, that brilliance becomes torture. You don't need to stop thinking. You need to learn where to stop. Because not every moment needs a theory. Not every silence is a message. Not every decision needs a forecast. Your brain needs a finish line. It needs a red light that says, that's enough. Because if you don't give it one, it will keep running forever and take you with it. Overthinking won't kill you fast. It'll kill you slow. Through indecision, through exhaustion, through missed opportunities, through mental decay. The loop doesn't just waste your time, it wastes your life. So ask yourself, what am I trying to solve that can't be solved? What loop have I been running that needs to be broken, not finished? And who would I be if I finally stopped thinking long enough to start living? This is Black Trap. Mental noise as control. How society benefits from your self-doubt. Overthinking isn't just a personal problem. It's a designed outcome. You think your mind is malfunctioning, but what if it's performing exactly as intended by the systems that profit off your doubt, insecurity, and distraction? What if the noise in your head isn't accidental, but engineered? In this chapter, we expose how overthinking isn't just a mental habit. It's a psychological weapon used against you, a tool of control that turns your intelligence against you. And while you're busy analyzing every move you make, the world moves on without you. Self-doubt, the hidden program you were taught to run from the moment you were a child. You were trained to second-guess yourself. Are you sure? Don't speak unless you're certain. Think twice. Don't make a mistake. These weren't just lessons. They were programs installed into your mind, not to make you smarter, but to make you compliant. You weren't taught to trust your gut. You were taught to wait, to question yourself, to hesitate, because hesitation creates obedience. Overthinking makes you easier to manage. While confident people move fast, Self-doubters pause. They delay. They need approval. They need permission. And in that pause, you lose power. That pause becomes the space where others act before you do. Overthinking was marketed to you as caution, as intelligence, as wisdom. But real wisdom isn't hesitation. Real wisdom is knowing when to stop thinking. The voice in your head telling you, "You might mess this up," wasn't born inside you. It was planted. The system thrives on your uncertainty. Every time you hesitate to make a move, someone profits. Every time you replay your words, doubt your decisions, or silence your instinct, a system gains more control over your behavior. Think about it. A society built on productivity doesn't need you empowered. It needs you obedient, predictable, distracted. Overthinking keeps your energy turned inward. While you're busy reviewing every micro moment of your day, you're not challenging the status quo. You're not questioning the system. You're questioning yourself. That's exactly what they want. Because self-criticism is the most effective form of social control. It doesn't require policing. You do it to yourself. You regulate your voice. You lower your volume. You pull back your ideas. All because your mind tells you, "What if I'm wrong?" And while you second-guess everything, louder and less thoughtful voices take up the space that should have been yours. The system doesn't need to silence you. It just needs you to overthink yourself into silence. The noise industry, keeping your mind loud on purpose. Look around. Everything is noise. Your phone, your notifications, your ads, your feeds. You are surrounded by distractions designed to keep your mind overloaded. Why? Because a busy mind is a passive mind. A distracted thinker doesn't take risks, doesn't rebel, doesn't create change. They scroll, they consume, they doubt. This is not random. This is industry. Billions are spent to keep your mind loud, so loud that your own voice gets drowned out. And then, when you try to focus, your brain, conditioned for chaos, won't let you. You can't sit in silence. You can't act without second-guessing, because your inner world has become a reflection of your outer one. Too much input, not enough direction. Talks about it. Because it's invisible. You look like you're just thinking. You seem deep, but you're drowning, and no one sees it. Because overthinkers are high-functioning. They keep smiling, keep working, keep spiraling internally, and society rewards that. Because it keeps everything looking normal on the outside, while you fall apart inside. The hidden truth. They can't control what you trust. Here's the most dangerous thing you can do in a system that thrives on your mental noise. Trust your gut. Trust your instinct. Act before your brain ruins the moment. The people in power, the systems of influence, they fear one thing most: someone who is calm inside, someone whose mind is clear, because that person is dangerous. That person can't be manipulated. When you stop doubting and start deciding, the system loses its grip. You stop being a passive consumer of fear, guilt, and control. You become unpredictable. You become powerful. Not because you overthought everything, but because you finally thought less and acted more. Don't let the world make you your own jailer. The longer you wait for permission, the more time you lose. Your mind is a weapon, but only when you aim it with purpose. Otherwise, it just backfires. Again, and again, and again. Break the noise. Trust your instinct. This is Blacktrap, the mirror maze, when awareness becomes self-surveillance. There's a point where self-awareness stops being a strength and starts becoming a prison, where knowing yourself turns into watching yourself, critiquing yourself, policing your every thought, word, and action. It doesn't feel like growth anymore. It feels like surveillance. You're no longer just living. You're monitoring every moment of your existence like a security camera. This is the mirror maze. And once you step into it, every reflection feels real, but none of them are you. The curse of hyper-awareness. Most people aren't aware enough, but overthinkers, we see everything. The shift in tone, the slight pause, the double meaning, the unsaid tension. We live in the fine print of life, hyper-aware of what others miss. But this power is also a curse, because that same awareness turns inward. You start observing yourself the same way you observe others. You analyze your own face while you speak. You rehearse sentences in your head while the conversation is still happening. You relive your laughter, your silence, your posture, as if you're both actor and director in the same moment. You can't just be, you have to watch yourself being. And that awareness, though deep, is exhausting. You become less human, more algorithmic, less intuitive, more performative. Every action feels edited, not for honesty, but for control, for safety. And in that safety, you lose spontaneity. You lose freedom. You lose you. ... Perfectionism and the fear of being seen wrong. At the core of this self-monitoring is fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being too much. Fear of being seen the wrong way. So you start polishing your words. You minimize your reactions. You shrink your volume. You adjust, correct, and recalibrate every version of yourself until it feels safe. But safe doesn't mean real. It means calculated. And the more you calculate, the more distance you create between who you are and who you present. That's when you stop being a person and start being a brand. You smile when you're unsure. You nod when you disagree. You hide your depth because it makes others uncomfortable. And the terrifying part is you start forgetting the difference between your real self and your projected self. The reflection becomes the identity. The mirror becomes the truth. And once that happens, you can't even relax around yourself. Social surveillance. The world watching you watch yourself. You're not just self-aware. You're aware of how others perceive your self-awareness. It's layered. You think about what they think about how you think. You replay not just your own behavior, but their possible interpretation of your behavior. That's not consciousness. That's paranoia. But it's no accident. We live in a world of constant observation. Social media is built to turn your life into a performance. You curate your meals, your workouts, your feelings. You post and then obsess. Did they like it? Did they understand it? Did I say too much? You're not sharing to express. You're sharing to manage perception. You're not looking in the mirror anymore. You've become the mirror, reflecting whatever version of yourself others are comfortable seeing. And in that process, you betray your truth, not because you're fake, but because you're afraid. The inner critic as the new warden. Your mind becomes your warden. You tell yourself, don't be too intense. Don't speak too fast. Don't show too much emotion. You shrink before anyone else can make you feel small. And what starts as emotional intelligence becomes emotional censorship. The inner critic is relentless. It doesn't just question you, it punishes you. For being too quiet, too loud, too distant, too emotional. It doesn't matter what you do, you're always wrong. That voice wasn't born in you. It was assembled from years of rejection, criticism, abandonment, and shame. And now, it wears your voice. This critic watches you in every room you enter. You don't need someone to judge you. Because you've internalized the judgment of the world. The surveillance is now inside. Plays 24/7. You can't be free while watching yourself live. Freedom doesn't mean acting without consequence. It means acting without fear of the mirror. When you stop performing, stop adjusting, stop trying to be a perfect echo of others' expectations, you begin to exist. Self-awareness is a gift when it helps you grow, but when it traps you in self-observation, it kills your authenticity. You weren't born to monitor. You were born to move, to speak without scripts, to feel without apology, to think without rewinding. You don't need to be less aware. You need to be less obedient to the parts of your awareness that were programmed by fear. There is no perfect version of you, no right performance. There is only you, raw, untamed, unedited. And that version is free. This is the way out of the mirror maze. This is Black Trap, escaping the thought spiral, the dangerous art of thinking less to survive more. You've been told your whole life to think more. Think it through. Think before you speak. Think before you act. But what if thinking more is exactly what's holding you back? What if survival in this noisy, overstimulated world actually requires thinking less? Not because you're weak, but because your mind has become too heavy to carry. In this final chapter, we explore the ultimate escape from the overthinking trap and the brutal truth that freedom comes not from more knowledge, but from less mental noise. The spiral doesn't end. It just pulls you in deeper. Overthinking is like quicksand. The more you fight it, the deeper you sink. You try to logic your way out of it. You ask more questions, replay more conversations, reanalyze your decisions. But every new thought is just another brick in the prison wall. That's because overthinking feeds on itself. It gives you the illusion of progress while actually keeping you stuck. You feel like you're doing something, being cautious, being responsible, but you're actually delaying, avoiding, trapped in motionless motion. And the spiral never stops. It doesn't just revisit the past, it ruins the future. You imagine every worst-case scenario, every way you'll fail, every reason why something won't work. So you do nothing. Because doing nothing feels safer than doing something imperfectly. And that is the trap. Why clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from stopping. Here's a hard truth. Clarity doesn't come from more thinking. It comes from interrupting thought. Real clarity, the kind that cuts through noise, is found in the quiet moments between your thoughts. But most people never reach that place because they never stop spiraling long enough to get there. We've been trained to believe that the more we think, the more we understand. But at a certain point, thinking becomes over-identification. You believe you are your thoughts. You forget that your thoughts are just activity, not truth. That's why the first step out of the spiral is stillness. Not fixing, not solving, just stopping. Watching the mind without reacting to it. That takes strength, because the mind hates silence. It panics without stimulation. But that silence, that stillness, it's where you return. The you beneath the thoughts. The you that isn't confused. The you that knows. Thinking less is not ignorance, it's precision. This is where most people get it wrong. Thinking less doesn't mean being thoughtless. It means being precise. It means cutting the mental fat, the useless speculation, the endless what-ifs, the emotional recycling of things you cannot change. Thinking less is a skill. It's restraint. It's asking yourself, is this thought useful? Is this helping me act or keeping me frozen? Because most thoughts aren't wisdom. They're fear in disguise. You don't need to stop thinking forever. You need to stop thinking in circles. When a thought leads nowhere, it's not insight. It's anxiety pretending to be intelligence. And when you see that clearly, you can step out of the loop. You can move. The world wants you spiraling because spiraling keeps you safe and small. Let's be honest. Society loves overthinkers. You're easier to control, easier to sell to, easier to keep stuck. Spiraling people don't rebel. They ruminate. They doubt. They apologize. They obey. And the system rewards that behavior with praise for being thoughtful or sensitive. But that's manipulation, because your overthinking doesn't make you wise. It makes you slow. It dulls your instincts, delays your dreams, makes you question your gut until you forget you ever had one. And every moment you spend spiraling in your mind is a moment you aren't living, not taking the leap, not making the move, not breaking the pattern. You're too busy surviving your own thoughts to actually live your life. That's not deep. That's a form of mental paralysis. Trust over thought. The only way out of the spiral is to choose trust over thought. Trust your instincts. Trust your timing. Trust that not every decision needs analysis. That some things are meant to be done, not dissected. Because overthinking kills momentum, and momentum is life. You are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. And if you can remember that, even for a second, you create space. And in that space, you move, you act, you create, you speak, you finally live. Thinking too much isn't your flaw. It's your mind in survival mode. But now, it's time to exit. You're not here to stay stuck. You're here to break out. The first step is silence. The next step is action. This is how you stop spiraling. This is Black Trap.